descent of the Bluebell Woods, when melting fires are burning to the Bluebell Woods. Each year I'll be returning to the Bluebell Woods, to the Bluebell Woods. And a lone blackbird's sweet madrigal was the only sound on that spring day. His soaring voice just so magical, I had no choice, for my heart would stay in the Bluebell Woods, when melting fires are burning to the Bluebell Woods. Each year I'll be returning to the Bluebell Woods, to the Bluebell Woods, to the Bluebell Woods. When the day is done, hear the fairies sing, while a million little bluebells ring. Hidden eyes will peer, unsure if they should view the magic here in my Bluebell Wood. Hello and welcome to another song from the Witch's House. I had hoped to do this little piece to camera out in the Bluebell Woods because the song that you've just heard is called Bluebell Wood, and I did venture out into the woods to take lots of footage for our little video, but unfortunately there was just a little bit too much wind to be able to do this piece to camera. So instead I'm sat inside my dining room, and hopefully you can see some pictures behind me. As you know, when I make these films and when I've written some of the songs that I've shared with you, they've largely been inspired by members of my family or by loss, etc. And this song, Bluebell Wood, is a bit more of a, hopefully an uplifting song which celebrates nature and particularly the enchantment of a bluebell wood. And the first person in my life who really taught me, first of all, an appreciation of nature, and secondly, an appreciation of poetry and language, was my grandfather. So I've got some photographs of him behind me, and hopefully David will give you some close-ups. Sadly, my grandfather's no longer with me, passed away in 1990 at the age of 83. He was born in 1907. His name was Tom Haynes, and he was born in Catford in London. And probably, apart from meeting my nana, the most defining point of his life was the fact that he joined the army, and he absolutely loved the army. And as a small child, he used to take me on lovely long nature walks from a very young age, and he would regale me with stories of what it was like in World War II and fighting in the army. And I was very lucky to have him as a grandfather because he was a typical grandfather. So he had a shed, he had an allotment, he was always mending things, making things, growing things. My mum could always call upon him to help out in the house. And because they lived in the same town, my grandparents, I saw them virtually every day of my childhood. So we were very, very close. And I was particularly close to grandfather because, or Gramps as I used to call him, because he used to take me for these lovely long walks from a very young age, from about the age of 6 or 7, and we would walk for miles. And sometimes he'd take me to Cocky Down, sometimes he would take me to Broken Bridges, often he would take me to Bluebell Wood, sometimes he would take me to Old Sarum. And many of these places have served as an inspiration for some of the songs that David and I have written. So I always remember him taking me to Bluebell Woods and we would walk for miles, talk about all sorts of things. When I think back, he never really talked about the combat that he must have experienced in those war years. He would talk about more upbeat things. He would talk about a concert party that he'd been to see. He would talk about jokes that he'd played on fellow servicemen. He would talk about the various animals that he'd had whilst he was a serving officer. He was in the Highland Light Infantry, the HLI, and I know that he fought the Japanese in Burma. What I never appreciated really was probably the trauma that he'd gone through. I can remember as a child, you know what children are like, they always blurt out questions. I can remember saying to my grandmother, "Nanny, why doesn't Grandad sleep in the same bed as you?" And she would say, "Oh, I can't put up with him sort of jerking around and kicking out all night long." And it was later on that my mother explained to me that actually when he came back from the war, he was probably, almost certainly, suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. And when he went to bed and he went to sleep, he was reliving it all and shouting things out and probably fighting the war all over again. And I think we never really understand truly the sacrifice that that generation made. I can remember my older brother, he's quite a few years older than me, and he was very close to my grandfather, telling me at my grandfather's funeral a story that my grandfather had confided in him, that they had been under fire in the jungle in the war, and his best friend had been shot right by the side of him, and he lay dying at Grandad's feet, and Grandad knew that if he moved, he would be shot as well. So you cannot really understand some of the horrors that people experience in war. War is a terrible, terrible thing. And I'd like to think that perhaps when he was dealing with all that, and I never knew anything about that as a child, but maybe the walks in the country, having his allotment, being close to nature was a way of soothing him and helping him. So yeah, he taught me to really appreciate nature, and he had a great love of animals, especially dogs, and dogs always used to gravitate towards him. He always had a dog, and wherever we went, they just seemed to make a beeline for him. And I think he passed on the same gift to my mum because she was the same. So I was really, really lucky to have my grandfather, and we had a very, very close link. I can remember, it was back in my university days, I was doing some ironing, ready to set off to college the next day. And I had this overwhelming feeling that my granddad wasn't very well. And so I gave him a ring, and he was ages coming to the phone. And when he did come to the phone, I asked if he was okay, and he said no. And I said, right, I'm coming straight up there, because I only lived about 5 minutes away. I went up to see him, and we had this lovely conversation because he knew I was about to graduate, and we talked about, you know, hopefully what I was hoping to do in life. And I made him a cup of tea, and I could see that his hands were shaking. They were normally really, you know, very still. And shortly after, my mum and my grandmother came in because they'd been shopping, and I told them about my concerns, and he got taken into hospital that night, and he died the next day. So I always think back to that conversation that we had, and all those lovely memories that I cherish with him. I remember one time as a child, I was only about 4 years old. My granddad was looking after me while my mum and nan went shopping, and he was pottering about with a car that he had. And he came in, and like I say, I was only about 4 years old, and he said to me, "Does your mother have a funnel?" He needed a funnel for something that he was doing on this car. And then he said to me, "Do you know what a funnel is?" Because it's literally only about 4. And I said, "Yes, Granddad." And I picked up a piece of chalk and I chalked a funnel on the wall out in my utility room, as it is now. And he said, "That's right, that's a funnel." And I said, "No, we don't have one." I wanted him to understand that I knew what he meant. So yeah, I had some wonderful times with my granddad, and I think that, you know, that generation very much dying out now, the generation that fought through the First and Second World War. And in a way, I look around at this woke world and I think, what would Granddad say if he were here? I think I can imagine. Anyway, so the song Bluebell Wood was written around about 2015, and I think at the back of my mind when I was writing the lyrics, I always had those childhood walks with Grandad in mind, especially up Gravely Woods. So I think the song has a gentle pace to it. I think you can imagine having a little saunter to the Bluebell Woods. And I've just tried to describe all the things that you tend to see at that time of year. The lovely new burgeoning canopy of leaves. You can hear my clock in the background again. The blackbirds singing, the lovely carpet of bluebells, the stillness and the enchantment. I had great fun making this video, and I think when you go into a Bluebell Wood and you have that kind of eerie calmness, you normally have a Bluebell Wood all to yourself, because I know people love Bluebell Woods, but whenever I've ventured into one, I seem to have been all by myself. You kind of imagine the sort of magical little elemental people that might be there, the pixies, the fairies, the goblins, the sprites. And I tried to represent that both in the lyrics and in the film that you're about to see. So I really hope that you like Bluebell Wood. I think David's done a wonderful job. He's very clever at the mixing, the arranging, and putting all these films together as well. Now, I normally have say a few words about whatever jewellery I'm wearing, because obviously I'm talking about the bluebells. I thought I'll have to wear some blue gemstones. So today, if you can see, I am wearing an iolite and a kyanite, both blue, paying homage to the bluebells. So once again, thank you ever so much for coming to our channel, and please do like and subscribe or leave us a comment. We haven't got many people at the moment because nobody knows we're here, but once we've got a few of these films up and running, we're going to try and publicise it. So do tell your friends, do leave us a comment. The songs are available on Bandcamp should you like to purchase them. And until we meet again on the next full moon or new moon, some witchy magic is coming your way.